The Rusty Anchor was a dive bar a few blocks from my apartment, all chipped paint and flickering lights, but my friend Lena loved it for its cheap drinks and loud music. That Friday night, she was buzzing with energy, determined to live it up after a rough week. I wasn't in the mood. Breakups leave you hollow like that. But Lena's enthusiasm was contagious, so I tagged along, promising myself I'd stay for a couple of hours. The bar was packed, the air thick with sweat and spilled beer, and the jukebox blared a mix of classic rock and bad pop. Lena was in her element, twirling her hair and scanning the crowd for fun. "Come on, Jess, loosen up," she teased, dragging me to the bar. I ordered a rum and coke, planning to sip it slowly and keep an eye on her. You know how guys are in places like this, sharks circling. Sure enough, within 10 minutes, a tall guy with a baseball cap was chatting her up, and Lena was all giggles, leaning into him. I sighed, figuring I'd be the designated babysitter tonight. I turned to the bar, stirring my drink, when a voice slid in beside me. "Rough night?" he asked, smooth as silk. I glanced over. He was maybe 30, clean-shaven, with a tailored jacket that looked too nice for a dive like this. His smile was wide, teeth gleaming, but his eyes were sharp, like he was studying me. "Just keeping an eye on my friend," I said, nodding toward Lena. He introduced himself as Mark, ordered a whiskey neat, and started talking about the music, the crowd, even the weather. He was charming, almost too charming, like he'd rehearsed every line. It felt like an act, but I couldn't pin down why. Still, he was easy to talk to, and after a second drink, I relaxed a little. We moved to the dance floor, the bass thumping through my bones. Mark was a good dancer, guiding me with a hand on my waist, but that smile never wavered, like it was painted on. When he leaned in to kiss me, I pulled back instinctively. "I'm not feeling it," I said, trying to keep it light. His smile flickered, just for a second, and something cold flashed in his eyes, mutually exclusive. "Suit yourself," he said, his voice low and sharp. "You don't get it, do you?" I could have handled it better, I know, but the rejection stung him. He stepped closer, his demeanor shifting. "Come on, don't be like that," he said, his tone no longer smooth but edged with anger. I checked on Lena. She was still with her guy, laughing, oblivious. She caught my eye and mouthed, "I'm going home with him." I rolled my eyes. "Great. Night over." I decided to head out. As I grabbed my jacket, Mark appeared again, blocking my path. "Leaving already?" he asked, that smile back, but tighter, like it was holding something back. I ignored him, heading for the door, but he grabbed my arm, not hard, but enough to make my skin crawl. "Let me drive you home," he said, his voice too calm. "I'm good," I said firmly, pulling away. "Leave me alone." His smile vanished, and for a moment, his face was blank, like a mask had slipped. I pushed past him, heart racing, and hailed a cab outside. The cab ride was quiet, the city lights blurring past. I felt uneasy, like I'd dodged something worse than a bruised ego. When I got home, I locked the door and checked the windows, trying to shake the feeling of being watched. I crashed into bed, exhausted, but sleep wouldn't come. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have walked away." My blood froze. I blocked the number, but 10 minutes later, another text came from a different number. "I know where you live." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found a small, folded note slipped under my apartment door. It was a bar napkin from the Rusty Anchor, with one word scrawled in black ink: "Soon." I called Lena, who was fine but hadn't seen Mark after I left. I reported it to the police, but without a last name or clear evidence, they couldn't do much. Days later, I swore I saw him across the street from my building, just standing there, smiling that same too perfect smile. I moved apartments a month later, but I still check over my shoulder, and every unknown number that texts me makes my heart stop, wondering if it's him, waiting to finish what he started. The Drifter was my second home, a A grimy bar on the edge of town where the neon sign flickered like it was on its last breath. I'd been slinging drinks there for 6 years, pouring whiskey for truckers and cheap beer for the locals who'd rather drink than talk. The place had its charm: scarred wooden tables, a jukebox that only played Johnny Cash, and a smell of stale hops baked into the walls. It was predictable, which I liked. But that night, predictability went out the window. It was a slow Tuesday, the kind where you can hear the hum of the fridge over the chatter. Around 10 p.m., the door creaked open, letting in a gust of damp air. A man shuffled inside, his coat dripping from the drizzle outside. He was tall, hunched, his face hidden under a hood. He didn't look at me, didn't order, just claimed the corner table, the one nobody ever used because the light above it flickered like a strobe. I watched him from behind the counter, polishing a glass that didn't need polishing. He sat motionless, hands folded, staring at the tabletop like it was a puzzle he needed to solve. The regulars didn't notice him. Old Pete was rambling about his ex-wife, and Sarah, the nurse who came in after her shift, was nursing a gin and tonic. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His coat smelled like wet earth, even from across the room, and the air around him seemed heavier, like it was pressing down on the bar. I tried to focus on my work, restocking bottles, wiping the counter, but my eyes kept drifting back to him. By midnight, the crowd had thinned to just Pete and the stranger. I called out, "Last call," my voice louder than I meant. Pete grumbled and paid his tab, but the man didn't move. I steeled myself and walked over, my boots sticking to the tacky floor. Up close, his coat was threadbare, stained with something dark. Oil, maybe. His hands, pale and gnarled, clutched something small, but I couldn't make it out. "Sir, you want anything before we close?" I asked, keeping my tone steady despite the knot in my stomach. He didn't look up. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, in a voice like gravel scraping bone, he said, "You shouldn't be here." My breath caught. Before I could respond, he slid a folded napkin across the table, his fingers brushing the wood like they were testing it. He stood, faster than someone his size should have moved, and was out the door before I could blink. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the napkin like it might bite. Pete called from the bar, asking if I was okay, but I waved him off. With trembling hands, I unfolded it. Scrawled and shaky, uneven ink was my full name. First, middle, last, a name I never gave out at work. Beneath it, the words, "I've been waiting." My knees buckled. I shoved the napkin in my pocket, locked up early, and sent Pete home with a free beer to keep him quiet. At home, I double-checked the locks, my mind racing. I pulled the napkin out to read it again, but it was gone. I tore through my jacket, my bag, the trash, nothing. Exhausted, I collapsed into bed, convincing myself I'd imagined it. But when I woke the next morning, the napkin was on my kitchen counter, folded neatly, the ink darker than before. I burned it in the sink, but every shift since, I feel eyes on me. The corner table stays empty now, but sometimes, when the light flickers, I swear I see a shadow sitting there, waiting. Route 9 Tavern was a pit stop for people passing through: truckers, drifters, folks who didn't stay long enough to leave a mark. The bar was a squat brick building, its neon sign buzzing louder than it glowed. I'd been bartending there for 3 years, used to the rhythm of late nights and lonely customers. We had an old TV above the bar, a boxy relic that picked up more static than channels. Most nights, it droned in the background, ignored by everyone. But that night, it became something else. It was a Thursday, quieter than usual. A few regulars nursed their drinks, and the jukebox played a tired country tune. Around midnight, the door swung open, and a woman walked in. She was tall, sharp-featured, her black dress clinging to her like it was tailored for a funeral. Her heels clicked on the worn floor as she took a stool at the bar. She ordered a vodka neat, her voice low and precise, and fixed her eyes on the TV. I poured her drink, trying to make small talk, weather, sports, anything. But she just nodded, her gaze never wavering. The TV hissed static, the kind that makes your teeth ache. I ignored it, but then a voice crackled through, low and distorted. She knows. I froze, the bottle of vodka still in my hand. The woman didn't react, just sipped her drink, her lips barely touching the glass. I glanced at the regulars. None of them looked up. Thinking it was a glitch, I walked over and fiddled with the antenna. The static surged, and the voice came again, clearer. She knows what you did. My heart skipped. I turned to the woman. You hear that? My voice was shakier than I wanted. She tilted her head, her smile thin and cold. Hear what? Her eyes were like polished stones, unreadable. The TV hissed louder, the voice repeating, she knows, each word slicing through me. I yanked the plug from the wall, and the screen went black. Silence fell, heavy as a storm cloud. The woman finished her drink, slid a 20 across the bar, and left, her heels echoing until the door shut behind her. I tried to shake it off, but the night felt wrong after that. The regulars left one by one, and I closed up alone, the static's echo lingering in my head. When I got home, my own TV, unplugged since I'd moved in, flickered on as I passed it. Static filled the screen, and my name whispered through the speakers, slow and deliberate. I smashed the set with a baseball bat, shards of glass scattering across the floor. Days later, I found a photo tucked under a bar mat at work. A grainy Polaroid of me, asleep in my bed, taken from above. I don't know how it got there or who took it. I quit the next week, but the whispering follows me, in the hum of my fridge, the buzz of streetlights. I keep the Polaroid in a locked box, too scared to burn it, too scared to look at it, wondering what she knew that I don't.